you guys being so closely linked into the property market and there being so much activity happening at the moment off the back of all the COVID disruption and low interest rates and that sort of stuff, keen to hear from you. What's your take? Like, what are you seeing? What's your take on the property market today?
Yeah, for one, it's absolutely booming, right? Everywhere globally, given the kind of elements that you've called out there, low interest rates, people kind of stuck at home or in their own country, so no big expenditure, kind of traveling overseas or kind of big moves like that. So focusing more internally on property, whether it's property improvements, whether it's kind of scaling up to the next property, and you can see in the signals from the central banks, particularly the RBA, those rates are going to stay low. So funds are available from a lot of the banks and non-bank lenders. So it's just it's a really hot time to get in, and that can actually be quite spooky for people. I think as you don't want to buy on the at the peak, but I don't feel as though there's a huge kind of fear bubble. Everyone tries to call that, right? But from this perspective, it's more around getting into the property that you want, managing your money in such a way that you can actually get into the postcodes that you want to live in, the more attractive places. Like we're seeing a lot of increases when you look at the kind of data from the likes of CoreLogic in very suburban areas that might be a little bit outside of the city. That they're taking spikes at the moment where people realize that working from home is becoming a lot more acceptable. So it might be that, that long commute that people needed to do kind of 5 times a week now is only 3 times in the long term. I mean, at the moment it's none. So
yeah.
But it's an exciting time to get into property, and I think that's going to continue for the next few years.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think it's the real temptation and trap for investors, whether it's property, shares, any other sort of asset class, is that people are trying to get really tricky with markets and find the perfect time. And I've lost count of how many conversations I had with people during COVID when the interest rates dropped to ultra low rates and the markets were freezing up. We're saying, guys, property was on your roadmap. Like, now is the time. And they're going, oh, but JobKeeper's going to end and the market's going to crash. And like all these armchair economists, or listening to basically the online, clickbait is probably the wrong word, but the sensationalist sort of headlines playing to those fears and psychology that makes people think that there's something that they're, either an opportunity or something that they're missing. But I was actually just writing a piece yesterday about this, and the markets are up massively. I saw Byron Bay up until May 110% on a median house price of $2.7 million. Seaforth in Sydney, I was looking at the stats from July, and they're up 39%. The median house price in Seaforth is $3.28 million. Like, that's 38% is a lot in any context, but when you're well into the 7-figure market, it's big numbers. And I think there's 250 plus suburbs in New South Wales that are up over $200,000 in the last year, which is big bickies, and it leads a lot of people to think, like, can that continue forever? Is it overcooked? Is it gonna come back? But the reality is, and what I put in this piece, is that I think if you look back in 10, 20 plus years time, it's unlikely that you're going to go, oh, I wish I paid, 3.1 instead of 3.3. Like, it's, you probably will say that, but you're going to recognize that your 3 has gone to 6, and then, really have you made a good decision? And sitting on the sidelines, and yes, there are, peaks and troughs, and, that's probably likely to happen in the not too distant future. But the likelihood of the average Aussie, myself or yourself or anyone listening included, in picking that at the perfect timing, it's going to be a luck factor. It's certainly not a you know, a genius or maybe clairvoyant factor potentially.
No, mate, look, I think you're spot on there. And I guess what you have to also realize is that all these sales that are occurring, there's ultimately someone that is kind of either cashing in and looking for their next opportunity. So the market is kind of buoyed by that on an ongoing basis as well. So you've got this kind of perpetual kind of ongoing cycle of money flowing in and out of the property market, and people, you know, there'll always be winners and losers. It's like with any kind of investment, right? You've just got to pick the right area, do your research, and ultimately take the long-term view. Like, it's property, it's not something that you kind of get into with the mindset that you're going to flip something in 6 months. You know, you are kind of generally, yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that you've just got to do your research and take the long-term view. That's the main thing.